Hello and welcome to round 7 of the 2019 Formula Virtual World Championship here from Jerez in Spain. My name's Bradley Downton and I'm joined today by Nick Forrest.
I know, twice in one season, who'd have thought it?
Today then the drivers will be tackling 69 laps of this 4.423 kilometre circuit here in Jerez. Stuart Harrison still holds the lap record back from 2016 when he took his one and only victory, but it was Al Kanga who won last time out. Can he repeat that victory? Let's take a look at the grid then. It's Enrique Ruiz on pole position. Klaas van Snelheid, championship leader, lines up alongside. The two of them are two of only 4 drivers on the grid on the soft tyres. I wonder if they'll be trembling a little bit on the front row there at their choice. Row 2, Nathaniel Powers and Adrian Simon. Those two drivers are on the mediums, as are quite a few of their rivals behind him, including both of those on row 3. And it's the first pair of Will Hoskins. Yes, Will Hoskins in a first. He swapped with Alexander Zolya for this race, and Felix Perez. Hoskins there getting the better of his New Mexican teammate. Row 4 is Al Kanga, the defending race winner, and Timo Kinnaman. Like the guys in front of them, they are both on the medium tyres, but rounding out the top 10, we have Felix Bayer and Johan Halverson for Holmqvist and North Star respectively, and those are the first 2 drivers on the hards, so keep an eye out for them. The hards were strong here a few years ago. Will they be again today? Sebastian Bergqvist lines up 11th in second Holmqvist. He is on the mediums as well, alongside James Vasquez in the lead Ingram, also on the mediums, with his teammate just behind in 13th. John Matson on the hard tyres ahead of Puccio Giordano. Failed to qualify last time out in France. He's on the mediums and suddenly he's 14th on the grid here in Spain. Great effort from the Italian. 15th is Mario Juan Lopez in the Meteor on the soft tyres. He's the third of them. Thierry Zylander lines up a brilliant 16th on the mediums for Phoenix. 17th is Gabriele Garcia in the second of the North Stars, also on the hards like his teammate, ahead of Elroy Wagner in 18th. Wagner running on the mediums here today in Spain. 19th and 20th on row 10, we have Carson Davenport, a great effort there in the Chima on the mediums. Victor Osberg completing the top 20. Osberg is on the hard tyres for Lopez. In 21st, we've got Sergio Alvarez in the second of the DS Phoenix cars. He is on the hard tyres, as is Rodolfo De La Fuente alongside him. In the Sol Andromeda, Alexander Zolya did not qualify for this race. He failed to get through. Hunter Ryan is 23rd on the soft tyres for the second Ocelot. Arden Hutchison in the Sol Lucas is 24th on the mediums, and the back row, they collided in qualifying, so neither of them set a time. Jules Simon and Nikolai Milkovic on the mediums and hards respectively. So as we go down to the grid then, it's Enrique Ruiz in pole position on the right, Klaas van Snelheid second on the left. It's a long hold here in Spain with the lights go out now, and we're racing in Jerez. It's a great start once again from Nathaniel Powers from third on the grid, but I think he's going to be boxed in behind Ruiz then, and it's Ruiz who leads into turn 1 from Klaas van Snelheid and Powers. Simon slots into 4th. Meanwhile, I think that's Felix Perez around the outside of Will Hoskins, and indeed it is. Perez has taken 5th place then from his new teammate for this race. Kanga follows them through in 7th.
Well, fantastic stuff from Perez there. Obviously not wanting to be hard done by his new teammate for this race. And he may have been bested in qualifying, but he's certainly not going to let that get to him, as we got a yellow flag in the final sector for some reason. That seems to have disappeared by now as they run down the long back straight into dry sack.
Yeah, and it's still Ruiz leading them with Klaas van Snelheid all over him. The pair got a little bit of gap back to Nathaniel Powers, so let's not forget, they are on the soft tyres, and well, it's the best place for them to be. Not entirely sure the softs are going to be the best tyre choice today in these hot temperatures, but we shall see.
Well, we certainly will, as Jerez known for its quite high temperatures, and the soft tyres, they seem to be pulling a little bit of a gap. Does Ruiz back to Van Snelheid and then back to Powers as well? But how long are they going to last for? That's the critical question in this race. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we saw a few years ago, the hard tyres, it was actually helping certain drivers out to a really unexpected result. And we'll have to see whether that's going to happen here again today then. So Ruiz crossed the line at the end of the lap 1 then to lead from Klaas van Snelheid and Nathaniel Powers. The rest of the grid pretty much in standard order. Don't seem to have been many big moves on the opening lap, as Milkovic there trying to go around the outside of Hutchinson at turn 1, and well, he's taken place up to 24th.
Well, likewise, Jules Simon trying to get past De La Fuente, and the Meteor driver having a pretty torrid time of it in qualifying. Had that collision with Milkovic, I believe, as you said, and he's really needing to put some moves on, and he's already moved up to 23rd.
Yeah, and yeah, as you say, Simon on a charge. Then he's. I mean, let's be fair. The car he's in is a little bit quicker than those that he's around at the moment. So hopefully he should be able to push forwards a reasonable amount to start with. Next up, he has, as you say, Rodolfo de la Fuente, the sole Andromeda in this race. We should probably address that.
I think we should do. The second Andromeda normally being driven by Will Hoskins, who this race has moved over to first in a driver exchange with Alexander Zozulia, and in a quite surprising turn of events, you have to admit, the Ukrainian failing to qualify for this race here in Spain.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And I mean, in fact, I don't think he was even close. I can't remember exactly. I'll have to double check. But yeah, Jules Simon has made the move now, though, and he's passed De La Fuente, who has also slipped behind Milkbit. Although Simon is in the pits, so I presume it wasn't quite as clean a move as maybe it initially looked. And yeah, there he is without a front wing.
Oh, that's not gone well for him then. So that's probably going to be quite a long afternoon. It's still going to drop him quite a ways
and it
back
was on De La Fuente. Sorry, yeah, we've just seen a replay there. It was indeed on De La Fuente. He tried to go around the outside, but well, aimed for the apex with the car on the inside, and that's never going to end well.
Well, it certainly isn't. I think De La Fuente might have got a bit of out of step going through that corner and just slid wide into Simon. But that is always the risk you take, trying to have an overtake around the outside. And here we see Will Hoskins in the first for this, the only race at the moment that has been announced for him to be racing in first. But he's doing a pretty solid job staying on the back of his teammate, who has a bit more experience with the car.
Yeah, as far as we're aware, say this is the only race that Hoskins will be in that car so far. But we'll have to wait and see. I should imagine if he pulls out some kind of really special performance, First will be digging deep to keep him in that car.
I think I would certainly be inclined to agree on that, as we've got the two Holmquists either side of Halverson in 10th and the North Star there, and they don't seem to be dropping too far back. They're about a second down after around 3 laps or so, which isn't too much considering they're on the hard tyres and those ahead are on the mediums.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just having a look at the Q1 results, and indeed Zazolia was 9th out of the 10 cars, some 2/10 away from 6th place and actually making it onto the grid.
Oof, that's not a statistic that I'm sure will be quite happy to have, the Ukrainian,
No.
especially not for this season, who's been performing very strongly in a car near the front. But put him in a car that needs to get out of Q1, and seemingly it's all gone to pot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've picked up before that he's not had the strongest of qualifying performances so far this season, but that probably goes down as one of the worst.
I think definitely the nadir of his qualifying, at least this season, as we keep an eye on John Matson running behind Puccio Giordano here in the Ocelot. He had a pretty strong qualifying, talking of, managing to get out of Q1 and then sticking it 14th on the grid.
Yeah, absolutely, and a quite remarkable turnaround from, say, 2 weeks ago when we were in France, and he, having been the defending race winner, admittedly at a different circuit, he failed to qualify at all.
That is true, but then I think Silverstone is a fairly different type of circuit to Jerez here. This one's got a lot of quite slow and medium speed corners, whereas Silverstone's perhaps a bit more toward the top end. And maybe
it
this
is, although we were at
Magny
Magny-Cours 2 weeks ago.
Magny-Cours, that's right. I'm a bit elsewhere. But yeah, Giordano, what a difference 2 weeks can make.
Yeah, absolutely, and he'll be loving this. Meanwhile, his teammate Hunter Ryan is struggling down in 25th and what is essentially at the moment last place, because obviously Jules Simon has already had to make that early pit stop. What tyres was Simon on actually? I'm just intrigued as to how much that is going to hurt his
Jules Simon, I think, was on the mediums. Don't quote me on that though, as we were briefly watching the top 4, Ruiz, Van Snelheid, Powers and Simon, and they are now starting to break away from Perez and Hoskins in the first behind them, as we've got a move. That is Hutchinson going around the outside of Hunter Ryan, or perhaps defending the position from the Australian.
Yeah, I think Hutchinson there just trying to hold Ryan off, and Jules Simon is indeed on the mediums. I've just double checked. Yeah, we've got Ruiz still leading up front, and we're looking at his teammate, or we were looking at his teammate, Timo Kinnaman, down in 8th place, and still, well, this is race 7 of the season now. He's still not able to get on terms with him, is he?
It doesn't seem that way, and perhaps the Franklin's just a bit of a handful of a car, at least for Kinman. But then Ruiz would have more experience with the team around him, and definitely seems to be a bit of a train forming behind the first pair now.
Yeah, there does, doesn't there? I was just going to mention that myself. They're some 3 seconds behind Adrian Simon already. The top 4 broken wave. Interestingly, Ruiz and Klaas up front aren't pulling away from Powers on their soft tyres. They're not making the most of this, and they really, really need to.
Well, they definitely do, but perhaps with the temperatures being as high as they are, they're a bit more susceptible to overheating, so they have to maybe take it a little bit easier, just so they don't completely fall apart.
Yeah, very possibly. As I'll tell you what, this is looking fairly reasonable from Bayer and Halverson at the moment, isn't it, on the hard tyres? The pair of them tucked up nicely behind Felix Perez in that queue.
Yeah, toward the back of the train there, with Bergqvist just behind them, some like 9/10 or so away. But yeah, if they can sort of hang on to the back of this train when all the medium and soft tyre runners come into the pits, that could elevate them right up the order.
Absolutely could. We'll have to keep an eye on that one then. As I say, up front we've still got Ruiz leading, and I think that's probably another topic we should address, really, isn't it?
I think it probably is. Yeah, definitely. It's recently been announced that this will be Franklin's final season in the sport.
Yeah, and I think that news kind of hit us all like a ton of bricks, really. I mean, Franklin have been the team since the series started, and I mean, in my own personal views, Franklin are and always have been, despite other teams, you know, ourselves and Mathershaw winning championships, Franklin have always been the team to aim for and the team to aim to be.
I would find myself in absolute agreement with that, Bradley. The Franklin team, they are statistically the most successful team in Formula Virtual even now. Those 3 double championships they had from 2013 to 2015, they've been serial race winners ever since. And despite the fact that they've not been perhaps at their peak, since then, they've still been right at the front. And I think the sport is going to be not exactly worse off, but very, very different without them.
It certainly will be. They and Jamie, the team principal, will be very, very sorely missed.
Yeah, again, you're absolutely right about that. Jamie, he's not the most courteous guy in the paddock, especially not with the press. But you can't deny that the results that he gets, and he's done so much for the sport behind the scenes as well.
He absolutely has. He's certainly a character in the paddock, shall we say?
I think that would be absolutely fair, and Formula Virtual, any motorsport, does need its fair share of characters, and, well, Jamie Franklin, a character through and through, and I think we are all going to miss him.
Yeah, absolutely, and I just want to take this opportunity. I mean, we have several races left in the season, and I'm sure there will be other things. Whether Jamie wants them or not, I'm sure there will be tributes to Franklin to come, but I just want to say, on a personal level, Jamie, thank you for everything you have done for the series, and both with your own team, because I genuinely believe that has helped me and my team progress forwards as well.
Well, not only that, I think it's helped the entire sport, with Franklin setting the standard right out of the gate, and then being able to stay relatively near that. So, Jamie, from me as well, thank you very much for getting me into the sport as well. And, well, hopefully there will be more tributes to come throughout the season, right the way until Brazil.
Absolutely, and maybe with a bit of luck, at some point we may just make that Hardman exterior crap. We shall see. But we won't spend the entire race talking about Franklin, because there is a race going on, although not too much happening at the moment. It's I think drivers conserving their tyres for the time being in these hot temperatures.
I think so, it would seem. There's not a great deal of movement in the timing screens on the left, and I think the gaps all just seem to be settling down a little bit, about 6 or 7 tenths between the guys at the front.
Yeah, they certainly do. It's interesting to see Kanga still stuck there behind Will Hoskins, but then we've seen this here in Jerez before, haven't we? It's just not particularly easy to overtake. I mean, we had a number of moves in, I think it must have been 2017, because I think it was Glass's first year, because he kept going around the outside of one of the corners. And I think Finn Schneider was replicating him, wasn't he?
I seem to remember something similar to that, but yeah, there's not a great deal of overtaking opportunity around the circuit. There's turn 1 and turn 6, and if you're feeling brave, you can go around the outside of one of the faster corners, and then see this straight where we are watching right now, down into the final hairpin. I don't think there's quite enough of a run to get a move into there, but you can definitely set one up down the straight into the first corner, and is anyone in this train looking to do it? It does not appear so.
No, they certainly do seem content just for the time being to sit there as we briefly jumped on board with Will Hoskins there then. But yeah, Jerez has this little gaggle behind him, and none of them seem to want to go anywhere, but they are now some 8.5 seconds off the lead.
That's true, so they are perhaps starting to fall back a little bit, maybe conserving their tyres a little too much. But then you never know, perhaps the first cars are just a bit more aggressive on the rubber.
Yeah, it's very possible. We've seen that already this season there, that they seem strong in qualifying, but come the race they just don't quite have the pace of the other three teams up at the front.
Well, possibly, but then this is their first season being there or thereabouts. Their 2017 was relatively strong, but even that was a bit patchy. There were some races they were up and some they were down. But here, they are definitely hanging on to the coattails of the top three teams ahead of them, and able to keep at least two of them, Kangur and Kinnaman, behind for the time being, but not really able to catch up to them when they're ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye on how that develops. And as we go back to Nathaniel Powers up front, and the top four still pretty much running nose to tail. 2 seconds, well, splits them effectively, and you can't help but feel that this is already 10 laps in, really hampering the races of the guys in the top two positions at the moment.
Well, potentially. Ruiz and Van Snelhigh, keep in mind, they are on the soft tyres, so they will be pitting earlier and more often than Powers and Simon behind them. And it's just a case of how long they can eke them out, and potentially, if they drop into some clear air, even though they're not dropping them, maybe they'll be able to pick up the pace a little bit and get the jump on them, but at the moment it's seeming unlikely.
Yeah, it certainly is. They're just not pulling the gap. I wonder if I'd always say it's probably too warm for the soft tyres to really be working at the maximum, as Hoskins gets a massive slide there, and that's given Kangur a sniff of blood. Can he take any opportunity to move that DS Mappleshaw up into 6th place? I'm not entirely sure that he can.
Well, you saw Hoskins getting another slide on through that corner. I believe that was turn 8, but he just doesn't quite seem to be as one with the car as Perez is. But then he's not exactly falling back.
No, but I mean, you forgive him not quite being at one with the car. He's only been in it for 11 laps plus a practice and qualifying session.
That is very fair though, but coming round the run out of the final corner down the main straight, and again everyone just seems to be content to sit in position. As well, look at the train now, it's going very, very far back. There's a bit of a gap between Halverson and Bergqvist, but from there back it's pretty much from 5th down to 23rd. Goodness me.
Yeah, all the way back to De La Fuente, and then you've got Hutchinson and Hunter Ryan, who are some way off.
That's true, but then they're having their own little scrap. We've seen that in a few cutaways earlier, and Jules Simon, I think, is beginning to close in on them, but he's still 13 seconds off the back of Ryan, so it's going to be quite a tall order for him to close up, I can imagine.
Yeah, it certainly is. I have to say, that Lucas, I don't quite know what is going on with it. I mean, they were there at the start of the year, right in with the other runners, but they just seem to have struggled ever since.
Well, perhaps they have, but maybe the other teams are bringing a few upgrades here and there, and Lucas are a bit more content with the car that they have. Perhaps they've turned their attention to next year very early. I would be quite surprised if that were the case. But yeah, they definitely seem to have stepped back a little bit and have at least been jumped by Chima in the Q2 standings. But well, it's about results, and Hutchinson at the moment in 24th, not exactly their best.
No, but at least he's in the race. You know, if anything dramatic happens, there is a chance that they may pick up some pieces. Unlike, unfortunately, AMR, who failed to get either car into the race this time around.
That is true, unfortunately, and well, for Kovalenko, who I think is right in saying has only qualified for that opening race, and we've not seen him on a Formula Virtual Grid since then, must be disappointing for them, especially, well, you've got Schneider who's qualified for a couple, but ever since Malaysia or so, AMR really do seem to have slipped back.
Yeah, again, that was another interesting thing, wasn't it? As you mentioned in Giordano earlier, his performance this time out compared to 2 weeks ago in France. Schneider as well. 2 weeks ago, he was the quickest car in Q1.
Well, that's true, and this time he's not made it out of qualifying, but I think,
there
as
we
we
go.
said, two very different tracks.
Yeah, sorry to cut across, but we have the top two into the pits then. Ruiz and Klaas van Snelheid at the end of lap 12. And wow, that's what, 5 stops?
At the end of lap 12, that is 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, so that will be 5 stops. That's a long old afternoon for them.
Yeah, and where do they come back out then? They come back out just behind the train that is led by Felix Perez. That is absolutely not what they would have wanted whatsoever.
Absolutely not. That is going to be pretty disastrous for them, because that's going to hold them up, and that'll allow Powers and Simon to continue pulling ahead, and they're going to have to make quite a few moves to get through this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if we're going to see any overtaking today, you sense that this is where it's going to come from. And already then, Ruiz on the back of Johan Halvorsen, the Brazilian, not wanting to wait around, and he's looking at the move up the inside. And he's not quite done it though. He had 2 wheels alongside Halvorsen, but couldn't quite make it.
Well, so it would seem as
Halvorsen over the curb on the inside, Ruiz on the outside, and has he finally been able to use that to get through? He hasn't. No, Halvorsen holds the outside line.
Wow, that's some pretty robust defending from the Dane, but it is starting to drop him back from bare up ahead. So it's a case of, does he want to compromise his race in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, we're just having a couple of technical difficulties at the moment. Yeah, on board then, not on board. We have an off-board shot of Enrique Ruiz looking at Johan Halvorsen into turn 1, but still can't quite make it happen then.
As that appears to be Lopez into the pits in the second Meteor, so was he running the soft tires as well?
I think he was, yeah, as was Hunter Ryan, who was in as well.
Okay, so there we are. So the soft tyre runners, I think they managed to eke out an extra lap or so, but then they've not been pushing their tyres as hard. Not entirely sure that'll... Actually, that might save them a stop or two. Well, we'll save them at least 1 stop.
Yeah, we'll see as Ruiz then looking up the inside line once again on Johan Halvorsen. Can he make it at the dry stack hairpin? No, he can't. Halvorsen holds on.
Wow, so again, so you'd expect the Franklin to be able to get past, but apparently nothing doing.
Yeah, on the soft tyres in a Franklin compared to the hards and on the North Star, it's quite unbelievable that Ruiz hasn't been able to get by. I think that just goes to show how difficult this circuit is to overtake at, and well, I really think tyre choice is going to dictate the result today, looking at this so far.
Well, potentially it will, but then there is quite a decent powertrain in the back of that North Star, the Ford engine. It's driven First and AMR as well. Admittedly, AMR rather struggling with it, but First and North Star appear to be quite happy with what that Ford power unit is delivering, and Ruiz at the moment appearing to struggle to get by.
Yeah, certainly is. Is that the driver name on the back of your rear wings?
It is, yes.
I thought it was the T-Mobile logo for a moment. That looks brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much. It was the T-Mobile thing last year, but I suppose you've just not really been in a position to notice it.
No, I haven't. As we are on board with Ruiz then, he's looking once again to the inside of Johan Halvorsen. He brakes late and dives up the inside. He's all over the curb, but well, that hampers him, and Halvorsen is able to hold on to the racing line while Ruiz was all over the curb on the inside, and Halvorsen holds 8th place again.
Well, there's more grip on the track than there is on the curb, and I suppose it's not very often that we see a North Star in front of a Franklin, but for the time being, it seems to be holding them off.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Halvorsen doing a great job here at defending then, and Klaas van Snelheid between the pair of them. Absolutely no hope of an overtake, it seems. And yeah, this is really shaping the race, and you dare say ruining it for the pole sitter and the man who started second.
Oh, it certainly is, as these two guys continue to romp away at the front. Nathaniel Powers for Downton and Adrian Simon in the DS Malachor, just half a second separating them, but then a further 11 seconds back to Perez, and in fact 12 seconds now almost, and we're only 17 laps in. That's going to be a big old gap come the end.
Yeah, and as we say, interestingly, Bayer and Helverson still there holding on in 7th and 8th in that train on, let's not forget, the hard tyres. The four in front of them are on the mediums and will surely have to pit more times than they do.
Well, you would assume so, given the they're softer, the medium tyres, but they do degrade faster, and it all depends on what the temperature does.
Klaas van Snelheid down the inside of Enrico Ruiz at the same corner that Ruiz has been trying to pass Helverson. He can't quite pull it off though. He's made the same mistake that the Brazilian does. He's got over the curve on the inside, and he's still resigned to 10th place.
Well, that perhaps gives Helverson a little bit of breathing room up ahead. But you've got to imagine that Ruiz will, and indeed is, all over the back of the North Star once again. The Franklin, a much faster car, but just can't find the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm just wondering, there's still 50 odd laps to go. I kind of don't want to tease this, but if we're thinking Powers and Simon are probably clear up front now, they've got some gap back to those behind. Perez, Hoskins, Kanger and Kinnaman on the medium tyres. That puts Bayer next in line. Is Bayer on for a first podium?
That would be quite something if Bayer could, because he's been close on a number of occasions in his AMR days, but could never quite get there.
He's taken his time, hasn't he? 94 races so far. Felix Bayer has entered, started, and not finished on the podium. I think he's had a couple of fourth places. And he had Mexico in 2016 for AMR, where he started on pole and was leading the race, only to be denied by Kiara Thunder in a Holmquist.
Wow, goodness me. Well, well, if ever there was a race to do it, if you can imagine that the tyres will definitely help both Bayer and Halverson. And if he can keep the Dane behind him, that would be a sensational result, as I think that was Halverson getting a bit of a slide, running a bit along the grass into that corner.
Yeah, as the three of them at the back there, Halverson, Ruiz and Klaas van Snelheid still in order, as Felix Perez running in third position at the moment, heading this little train. And well, he's doing a great job at defending, but you can't really say his teammates attacking him.
That's true. I do wonder if they're not exactly just holding steady. But given what happened in Manicure, I think First will be pretty eager that their teammates don't try anything too fancy.
Yeah, that's very true. I wonder if they've had a rather firm instruction from the team boss, who, let's be fair, was most unimpressed, I think is the nicest way of putting it after the race. And in fairness, he did say that changes would happen if the drivers didn't buck their ideas up, and well, he didn't even give them a chance. One was replaced immediately.
Well, the story is that this is to evaluate their driver lineup for next season, as I think that is Ruiz trying to go around the outside of Halverson, but through that corner I don't think it's going to come off.
No, he's certainly all over the rear end of him as they exit the hairpin. That's what I was trying to say. But, oh yeah, Halverson looking around. Nope, that's Ruiz looking around the outside. But Halverson just holding on, and he's placing his car in all the right positions.
Well, he seems to be quite good at doing that here, and maybe it's a bit easier to do that around this circuit. We've already seen it's quite tricky to overtake, and Ruiz and Klaas van Snelheid definitely finding that out the hard way. Yeah,
they certainly are, and well, if they weren't regretting their tyre choice on the grid when they saw that they were, those tyre choices were announced yesterday after qualifying, but I should imagine they were on the grid panicking a little, seeing that they were two of only four drivers on the soft tyres. Ruiz down the inside at turn one, but again Halverson chops him off, and that's potentially giving Klaas van Snelheid a look. They head round turn two, but no, nothing doing. But yeah, I'd imagine this pair were slightly concerned, as I say, seeing they were two of only four drivers on the soft tyres. But it was going to go one of two ways, wasn't it? It was either going to work fantastically, or this was going to happen.
Well, so it would seem. Concerned on the grid, and now a little bit impatient, it would seem, and not exactly worked out, but perhaps back.
Here we go. Sorry to cut across, but again, Ruiz down the inside at the hairpin, but No, all over the curb. And is that going to give Klaas a run into the next left-hander? It isn't quite. Nope. And just absolutely nothing they try seems to be working. As Ruiz gets the slide, is that going to allow Klaas a chance to go around the outside? No, it isn't. Once again, in formation.
Well, again, they're throwing everything at the wall, but nothing's sticking, and that North Star is the widest car on the track at the moment for Enrique Ruiz.
Yeah, absolutely. As the leaders start lap 21 then. But these guys then, Ruiz and Klaas Schnellhood, who were heading the field, now 17 seconds off Nathaniel Powers in the leader race. And Powers then, he's won the last two. Surely he's not going to go 3 in a row.
Well, that would be quite something, considering he only won one race last season, and that took him all the way to the championship. But three victories, that's better. And the Downton, it definitely seems to have made a step forward, considering where they were at the start of the season, I think. They were always towards the front, but they definitely seem to have gotten a little bit of a march on both the DS Mothershaw and the Franklin cars.
Yeah, Australia and the first few races, they seem to have the qualifying pace, but the race pace was just lacking in comparison to, say, the Franklin and the Mothershaw. But it's Ruiz down the inside again. That's not going to work. Tried that one, mate. But that has allowed Klaas around the outside, and they're wheel-to-wheel then through the left-hander, but still, despite being fully alongside, Klaas can't get the move done.
Well, that's... I think Klaas is just as impatient as Ruiz, but neither of them seem to be making any progress and still stuck on the outside of the top 10 as Bergqvist has now fallen 5 seconds off the back of them. And he was right on the back of this train, wasn't he? So what's happened to him?
Yeah, he wasn't too far behind at all, but definitely looks as though he's losing time. But these two up front, Powers and Simon, absolute class of their own. Now nearly 15 seconds clear of Felix Perez.
Wow, well, we talk about Bergqvist losing time. These two are gaining it hand over fist over all those behind them. And Perez, currently running third, is he going to be able to stay there? I'm not sure, but these two, you've got to imagine they're a lock for first and second unless something disastrous happens.
Yeah, you'd certainly. God, imagine if they come together.
Wow, that would be quite astonishing. If the tyres shake out as we are expecting them to, and Powers and Simon come together, that's probably the most outlandish result it could be in Formula Virtual.
Yeah, we could have a hell of a result of the cards if that happened, but yeah, the two of them certainly seem to be well away up front, don't they? It'd be interesting to see whether anything happens between them. I wonder if the advantage will essentially go to whoever pits first and gets the undercut, because I don't see an overtake happening on track, if I'm honest.
Well, that is quite possible, but then I'm not entirely sure if there's an undercut or an overcut effect here, or which way it would go, because the soft tyres have pitted, but we haven't been able to see whether or not that's worked.
No, that's true. I wonder if there's anyone further back that... Well, I mean, Hunter Ryan pitted, and he's already straight on the back of Jules Simon.
Well, he came out ahead of Jules Simon, didn't he?
Oh. In that case, it really didn't... Oh, into the pits, Felix Perez on the mediums then. But seemingly, the only driver in.
Wow, so has he been pushing a little bit harder, trying to catch up to those ahead, and maybe those behind are just settled down and content to follow him? But that is 23, 46 and then 69. That is bang on a 2-stopper. So the soft tyres we expect to do 5 stops. That's not good for them. And he feeds out right at the back of his own train.
Well, I don't know, because that's... he pitted at the end of lap 22. They're on 23 now, so it'll be 22, 44 and 66. So I think it will be a 3-stopper.
Wow, you're right. Well corrected. So that's going to put him 1 stop further from all of the medium-tired runners around him. That could potentially drop him well down the order, maybe even out of the points.
Yeah,
as
well,
again,
I mean, he pitted from third and rejoined 20 positions further back.
Well, that just shows you how much he's been holding up the rest of the field. And but you've got to say Hoskins, Kanger and the like aren't exactly stretching their legs further. But well, these overtakes aren't really forthcoming.
Sorry, in come the race leaders then. Powers and Simon pit from first and second. So you'd imagine Hoskins, Kanger and Kinnaman are going to follow them in.
Well, where are they going to feed back out? That's the question.
Yeah.
Seen that Ruiz and Van Snelheid at the end of that train. I'm not entirely certain if they're going to jump them.
Powers rejoins in front of Adrian Simon, and I think the pair of them have just got out ahead, and they have, and they've got out ahead even of Will Hoskins. Hoskins, Kanger and Kinnaman, none of them pit, But Powers and Simon have rejoined in front of all of them, still in first and second.
Wow, that just shows you the staggering level of advantage that they had in the opening stint. And if they can continue doing that, I think they're completely unchallenged for the rest of the race. Even though we're only a third of the way through, it certainly is looking that way for the time being.
Yeah, well and truly, you have to imagine Powers and Simon have this one pretty much sewn up already. You think Ruiz is only 5 seconds back from Powers now after these pit stops, but all these cars still between them. I just don't see it working.
Well, and all these cars are yet to pit as well, so well, they came into the pits earlier. I forget exactly which lap. It was around lap 12, so they're roughly coming into the pits around about now, as that is Perez continuing to make his way through the order, already up to 17th, so good effort from him.
Yeah, I think obviously a couple of people have pitted. He's got Bergqvist behind him, but I think he has made an overtake on Mario Juan Lopez, as there finally Hoskins, Kanger and Kinnaman do dive into the pits. That's at the end of lap 24, so I mean, that is an absolute guaranteed two-stopper for those three.
It certainly is. That's 24, 48 and then 72, as that now elevates Bayer up into third, Halverson up into fourth, and Ruiz and Van Snelheid still unable to find a way through.
Absolutely, and behind them then, if we're assuming Ruiz as Perez looks down the inside of De La Fuente at turn 1, but that doesn't work. Behind them, Ruiz and Klaas's strategy is probably not quite going to work. I mean, they're only 7 seconds clear of Matson. I dare say they're going to lose yet more places here.
Well, potentially. They've got to stop in the next couple of laps or so, you would think. And I'm not entirely sure how long the pit lane is, but I think that's going to drop them well outside of the potentially down to 17th or so. I think they're going to be clear of Bergqvist, just, but not by much.
Yeah, I'm just interested here as to... so at the moment then, we've got Powers leading up front. He is on the medium tyres, but he's made his first pit stop. As has Adrian Simon in second. Third is Bayer. Oh, we've got a burst off in the background, and that is, I think, Will Hoskins. It is. Yep, Hoskins in the wall, and without a front wing then, rejoins just in front of Sebastian Bergqvist. And I didn't quite catch what happened there. I just saw a first backwards.
Well, it looked to me, we only caught the tail end of it, but I think he just lost it of his own accord, and very nearly Bayer collecting him as he rejoined the track.
Oh, Will Hoskins then, not showing, well, that's absolutely not what you want to do in your first race for a new team, and he has to dive into the pits then, and that is massively going to harm his race.
It certainly is. He's going to drop well down the order.
That could be both firsts then in serious trouble. Hoskins is having to make a second stop already. We assumed Perez was going to be the only medium runner on a 3-stop because he didn't make his first set of tyres go long enough. This could be really bad for first.
Well, it certainly could, potentially, as Ruiz takes a look up the inside into the turn 6 hairpin, and I'm not entirely sure that's going to work. He's quite far alongside on the way in.
Here we go, replay of Hoskins, sorry, and yeah, he was indeed on the curve on the inside, and just lost it on his own, and as he recovered, flipped the wall and took his front wing off, and that is what's forced him back into the pits.
And down into 26th, some 5 seconds off the back of Jules Simon in the Meteor. But, well, nobody to blame there but yourself, mate, unfortunately. And I dare say Adam Blocker won't be too happy about his team's performance this race.
No, absolutely. And I bet a few days ago, Hoskins probably expected to find himself towards, not quite in 26th, but towards the back in the Andromeda. I don't think he'd have expected to be there in the first.
Well, certainly not, but he was hanging on there in the top 4 when the first of the soft tyre runners pitted. But the first car, I don't know what it is about this track in the first car, or the tyres, or just something, that they don't seem to quite have the pace in at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, as Kanga there looking up the inside of Lopez briefly, but absolutely nothing doing. Meanwhile, Perez seems to be the only guy who's actually made any kind of overtakes so far in this race, because he obviously passed Lopez earlier, and somewhere along the line he's passed De La Fuente as well.
So he is, and he's now quite close to the back of Milkovic for 11th.
Yeah, eyeing up Milkovic into the hairpin, but nothing doing there. Clearly the inside line is not working there, but no one seems to have realised yet.
Well, perhaps nobody's realised, but perhaps there's just nowhere else to go, because the outside is the racing line, of course, and at the moment seems to be the faster one.
Yeah, it's Kinnaman there looking around the outside of Alar Kanga, but that wasn't going to work, as up front, Powers and Simon are once again 12 seconds clear of Bayer, as Ruiz, there we go, Ruiz, I saw him shoot past Halverson and Bayer and assumed he was pitting, and there we go. Ruiz and Klaas-Van Snelheid into the pits for their second stop, and it'd be interesting to see where these guys feed out now, because, well, I think this is really going to cost them.
I think it certainly is, and this is at the end of lap 27, so I think they've managed to stretch it one lap further. They might be able to save one stop, but that's still a 4-stopper, and they feed out toward the back of this train, and Ruiz just behind Kinnaman there.
Yeah, so Ruiz and Klaas-Van Snelheid feed out in 14th and 15th place. And, well, the medium-tired runners, they're going to make, what, 2 stops, aren't they, total? Ruiz and Klaas are going to make 4, so they've still got 2 to go. Most of the guys ahead of them only have 1. This is, yeah, that's not going to work at all.
It doesn't seem that way. They've got 4 stops to make it a minimum, and this is Perez on Milkovic, but after those stops it's now for 9th place, and we find the Chima running in the points.
Oh no, they're off, there's a collision, and Perez and Milkovic are off and in the gravel, and both of them are out of the race.
Oh no, that was, they were fighting over 9th place, and perhaps discretion the better part of valour for the pair of them, as now both of them are going home empty-handed.
That is an absolute disaster for Chima then. And, well, Milkovic was over the curb on the inside. I don't think he could have been any more on the corner. And Perez clipped him and both of them out. And that is going to be absolutely heartbreaking for those on the Chima pit wall, because Milkovic was on the hard tyres. And if things pan out as we're expecting them to, he could absolutely have been on for a point scoring finish.
Well, I was just about to bring that up. Milkovic, we saw on the replay on the hard tyres as well, and it definitely seemed like they were the tyres to be on, but, well, Perez just didn't seem to leave enough room there. You can't expect the car on the inside to disappear. So both firsts getting mired in incidents, one retired and one second from last.
Yeah, oh, that means... Oh no, Ryan pitted, didn't he? I was going to say, I thought Hoskins had made an overtake for a second.
I believe he did, but keep an eye on this. We've got Rodolfo de la Fuente at the head of this little train with Kangur, Kinnaman, Ruiz and Van Snelheid behind him. 4 previous race winners.
Yeah, as Ruiz pulls out on his teammate, Enrico Ruiz then up the inside of Timo Kinnaman. The pair of them still wheel to wheel. Can Ruiz go around the outside? Yes, he can. Ruiz takes 11th.
Wow, fantastic stuff. So we've finally seen an overtake there, and that drops Kinnaman down to 12th, who now has to keep Van Snelheid behind him. But the 4 of them here, Kangur, Ruiz, Kinnaman and Van Snelheid, still unable to find a way past Rodolfo de la Fuente in the little Andromeda team.
That's quite amusing actually, isn't it? I bet de la Fuente never expected... I mean, in fairness, he was 7th on the grid in Australia for his first race after a wet qualifying session. But I bet he never expected a race where he'd be in front of a Mathershaw, 2 Franklins and a Downton, in that he wouldn't be being shown blue flags.
I think that's absolutely true, but he is, it would also appear, running on the hard tyre, so he could be on for a strong result as well. But
yeah, he absolutely could. Sorry, Kangur looked down the inside there, but that's cost him. On the outside is Ruiz, but Ruiz has lost it on the curb and spun into the gravel.
Oh no, so that's going to drop him right down the order as well. So Ruiz, obviously, his soft tyres, he's going to have to pit many, many times throughout the race, at least 2 more we think. And is he just getting a bit too impatient, do you think?
I think he might be, yeah. Let's have a look then. There was Ruiz around the outside of Kangur, but he got on the curb and it just went from under him. And Enrique Ruiz, well, the day that started fantastically, he was on pole position. It seemed to go right pretty quickly. The strategy very quickly forming itself to not be the best one out there. And, well, a day that went from bad to worse has just gone catastrophic.
Well, it certainly has been run out wide, but at the end of the day, he is a former champion, and you would perhaps expect him to be able to control things a little bit better, but not on the curbs, apparently.
No, absolutely not. There was, in fairness, that was a very bumpy curb, but I think the car bottomed out more than anything. But yeah, well, that's cost him. It looked as though he was going to struggle for points anyway, if we're being frank. But, well, Ruiz now down in 19th, is once again on board with Kangur. He looks to the inside of de la Fuente at turn 1. He's over the curve. Is that going to give Kinnaman a run around the outside now? It's not, no. But it's going to give Klaas-Van Snelheid a run up the inside of Kinnaman. but he can't make that one work either.
Again, the inside line not really seeming to work here. Maybe it's just the high temperatures. There's so little grip on the inside line, off the racing line at least, that you're just not able to carry the speed that you would need to make an overtake come off. And well, this little train behind Del Fuente, Alvarez isn't too far up the road, but none of the championship protagonists seem to be able to make any inroads.
No, they absolutely don't, as we have some cars going side by side through the hairpin, but still no moves taking place. Meanwhile, Powers and Simon up front are once again 20 seconds clear of Felix Bayer. That's already a pit stop, isn't it?
It is definitely a pit stop and a little bit in hand, I think, but medium tyres against the hards, and you've got to imagine the Downton and the DS Madishaw objectively faster cars than the Holmquist and the North Star, but yeah, I can't see anyone challenging them really, apart from themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. This is turning into a somewhat dominant display from the pair of them. But well, we'll see how things pan out. We're still not quite halfway in this race yet.
That's true. There's a long old way to go, and Kangor we just see diving out and to take another look into turn 1.
Yeah, still nothing doing though. As further back, Ruiz has made an overtake. We haven't seen it on screen, but interestingly, he spent all that time stuck behind Halverson earlier and couldn't do that. But he managed to assert his dominance over his teammate. The one car he's probably, you know, that he shouldn't really be able to overtake, because you should imagine they should be dead equal. But he managed to pass Kinnaman, and well, now he's done another one. But in fairness, without being harsh, it is only Carson Davenport.
I suppose it's testament to the challenge of overtaking here that we're celebrating the fact that a Franklin has overtaken a Chima.
Yeah, it's
Well, meanwhile, he's got a slightly trickier challenge in the form of Elroy Wagner, his teammate back from 2015, as a brief yellow flag in the middle sector as it quickly disappears.
Yeah, that's Hunter Ryan running on his own slightly further back, so I wonder if there's been a problem there for the Australian. I think it really goes to pain that you could probably count, if we discount lap 1, you could count the overtakes that have happened in this race on one hand thus far.
Well, potentially, but then there are a few cars out there that are showing that it can be done. Perez up until his incident, and then Ruiz a couple of times as well.
Yeah, as Kanga looks around the outside of De La Fuente at turn 1, and Alar Kanga adds another overtake to the list, as does Klaas van Snelheid behind him. Or does he? Van Snelheid around the outside of Kinnaman. He has completed it. We've just had 2 in 2 corners.
Wow, speak of the devil and he shall appear, very much so, as that moves Kangor up into 9th and Klaas van Snelheid into 11th. Now he has to get past De La Fuente as well and back into the points. But, well, how much further can...
Klaas straight on it around the outside of Rodolfo De La Fuente, and that is a brilliant move from Klaas van Snelheid. It seems as though they've woken up.
Well, it really does, and then Kinnaman following him through. Round the outside of turn 5, that's not somewhere you'd expect to see an overtake happening. But the front-running cars finally finding a way past the Andromeda, and perhaps they're setting off about getting back up the road.
Yeah, absolutely. All that needed then was Kanga to prise open the door, and Klaas and Kinnaman slipped through behind him. De La Fuente bumped from 9th to 12th in 1 lap, and immediately then Alar Kanga is onto the back of Sergio Alvarez, and you should imagine Klaas and Kinnaman would be there within a matter of metres as well.
Well, you would certainly think so. And De La Fuente, it was a very, very strong effort from the young Spaniard. He is Spanish, isn't he?
It's home race.
Well, that is absolutely true, you're right. And he did a very strong job holding them back for as long as he did. But you've got to imagine that was always going to happen. And, well, now, let's see if Alvarez can do the same.
Yeah, just to note, up front, Powers and Simon, in 3 laps since we last mentioned it, have pulled out another 4.5 seconds on Bayer and Halverson.
Wow, that's an astonishing turn of pace. You've got to imagine they'll start coming across lap traffic pretty soon if they keep this up.
Yeah, I mean, the first car they'll encounter will be Hunter Ryan. As, yeah, there we see on screen, Kanga, Klaas and Kinnaman already right on the back of Sergio Alvarez. And here's their next target. It's Klaas up the inside of Alar Kanga. And he's gone early and made a hell of a move. And, well, is still not quite going to pull it off, is he? He is around the outside. Klaas van Snelheid goes into 9th. Kinnaman follows him through. And all that hard work from Alar Kanga then has been undone.
Wow, brilliant stuff from the Dutchman into turn 6. That was more setting up the move into turn 7, but he was able to stay there, and he didn't let Kangor cut him off. which I think was what made the overtake happen. And now it's Sergio Alvarez up next, and Victor Rosberg not too far up the road in 7th.
Yeah, absolutely. And Klaas van Snelheid then is, as he showed in 2017, he was one of very few drivers that were able to overtake here, and he's pulling it off again. And he's got a great run now on Sergio Alvarez in the DS Phoenix, down to turn 1. Can he go around the outside? It's where he was looking for, but he can't quite make it happen this time around.
Well, no, you just saw Alvarez drifting over and covering the outside, and perhaps he knows that the inside isn't really fast enough to come off as an overtaking opportunity. But for the time being, just seems to be holding the Downton behind him.
Yeah, it certainly does, as it looks as though Klaas has realised if you want to overtake here, you're going to have to try the outside line and make it stick.
Well, perhaps, but he seems to have dropped back a little bit, and that's put Kinnaman and Kangor right on his gearbox. He has to keep an eye going into the hairpin as Kangor dives to the inside, but again, it doesn't quite make it happen.
Yeah, Kangor then desperate to regain the ground that he's just lost on the two drivers he's battling with, and well, I think we've just seen more overtakes in the last 2 laps than we've seen in the previous 34.
Well, quite possibly, as we could be on for some more, as we're keeping an eye on this train that's forming behind De La Fuente. We've got Bergqvist, Vasquez, Giordano, Zylander, Wagner all the way back, and that is, I think, Enrique Ruiz at the back of it, with Lopez and Davenport just bringing up the tail.
Yeah, so I think that means there's been an overtake, as Lopez has gone past Davenport at some point.
Oh, perhaps it has, but so you've got the Meteor starting to make its way back through, but it seems to be a slow process, as we've got Klaas van Snelheid taking a look on Alvarez into turn 1, but that is the inside line, and it does not quite happen.
No, as Kangor dives for the inside of Kinnaman at turn 2, but once again, it's not working for him.
That's true, nothing doing for the time being, and you've got to imagine their tyres will not be enjoying this, running in the dirty air of the cars ahead.
Oh no, that's a very good point actually. Let's not forget, Klaas van Snelheid is on the softs, so he will be into the pits probably this lap.
Well, this lap or the next 2, and if you just look in the background, they're not exactly dropping back, or they're not dropping De La Fuente. Is Klaas van Snelheid still alongside Alvarez? Is he going to try the outside? He's holding on, but he can't quite make it.
No, and that's going to give Kinnaman a shot, but Kinnaman can't quite take advantage. But very shortly, Klaas will disappear out of the way for them, and that will give Kinnaman a clear run at Alvarez.
It certainly will do, as you saw Kinnaman just
it's into the pit, sorry, Felix Bayer at the end of lap 36 then, and we missed it, but we are well past the one stop range. Bayer comes in. Where is he going to rejoin? That is really interesting to work out. He's out in 6th. That's Klaas van Snelheid and Alvarez going side by side into turn 1. Bayer has rejoined in amongst them. Klaas goes past Alvarez into what is now 6th place. Bayer, meanwhile, has slotted in between that pair, and Kinnaman and Kangor behind.
Well, Bayer exits the pits in 8th, and that is, at minimum, the lowest he can finish, because we think all the guys around him, they're going to have to make one more stop, and that is going to be Bayer's only stop of the race. And as well, Halverson, who currently runs in 3rd, inherited that from Felix Bayer, I should say. We're riding on board with him here. And Halverson is going to be into the pits in the next lap, we would imagine. So he's probably going to feed back out somewhere similar.
What will be interesting now, Bayer is stuck behind Sergio Alvarez. Halverson, I should imagine his engineer will be on the radio going, push, push, push. He was right up with Bayer when the Dutchman came into the pit. And I wonder if North Star just sensed a chance to nick the final, what looks to be the final podium place here.
Well, potentially. If I was down on the team wall, that is exactly what I would be telling them for this race. But keep an eye on Halverson when he comes in.
And here we go. He is indeed in the pits. So this needs to be a very quick turnaround from North Star. There is Felix Bayer as Alvarez gets out of his way before the final corner. That's going to help him. But where is Halverson going to feed back out? He's out of the box. He's in the pit lane. The Bayer's coming down the pit straight. Halverson out of the pit exit, and Bayer's gone through then. Halverson hasn't quite done enough, but he has done enough to fend off Timo Kinnaman and ensure there are no cars between him and Bayer.
Wow, so it's a straight race between the pair of them to the flag now, and that was very, very close. But it just seemed that Halverson not quite able to... He's on those harder, slower tyres.
Oh, I think we just
Bayer being held up
a second there.
Oh, well, I apologise if that's the case, but, well, it seems that being held up behind Alvarez for that one lap didn't do Bear too much harm, and he does now look on course to snatch the final podium position for Holmqvist.
Yeah, and well, we should probably start looking into this. As I think I mentioned earlier, it is 94 races then that Felix Bear has entered and and not scored a podium, and he far and away holds the record. I know that much. I'm not entirely sure by how much, however.
Well, that is true. We're not entirely sure who the second place holder is, but you've got to imagine it will drop significantly if Bear can hold on.
Well,
for
I shall
that
find
position.
out.
Okay, well, in the meantime, we're going to keep an eye on This Is Powers and Simon well out in front. Some 42 seconds ahead of Klaas van Snelheid in third, who we expect to make another pit stop, and 45 seconds ahead of the Bear and Halverson pair on the hard tyres. As we go on board with the Dane right here, through turn 1, and not seeming to be able to make too many inroads on Bear up ahead. He's been sitting behind him for pretty much the whole race so far.
Wow, okay, right. I've just found it. Do you want to know?
Go ahead, I'm sure this will be fantastic reading.
So, the next driver who's completed the most races without scoring a podium was Judson Sykes on 66.
Wow, and I suppose that just goes to show you, Bear, he is a driver of some notable talent. We're aware of that. He was very highly rated in the 2015-16 kind of era.
Yeah, well, I think he was teammates to, like, Lewis Ellington and Will Hoskins, and beat the pair of them.
He did, in the AMR team, and they were definitely putting in some pretty punching above their weight performances. That 4th and 5th, it was actually here at Jerez in, I believe, 2015, was it? Or 16, I'm not entirely certain.
Right. Let's just double check. AMR were 4th and 5th here in 2015 with Bayer and Nakamaya.
Fantastically fortunate result for them. The AMR team finishing 4th and 5th in Jerez in one of the years. I forget which one it was, sadly. As we've got, that is fire from the back. Oh, that's a Franklin.
Oh, that's Timo
Kinnaman. Timo Kinnaman. He's parked it on the apex. That's not the best of positions, but Timo Kinnaman, the Honda engine, has cried enough in this heat, and that is our 3rd retirement from the race.
Yeah, and Kinnaman then, who looked to be Franklin's only real hope of some reason. Well, I know Ruiz has just moved into 10th, but, well, both him and Klaas van Snelheid have to make their 3rd stops on the soft tyres, which haven't happened yet.
They certainly haven't. I'm not entirely sure why that would be, but, well, there you are, Timo Kinnaman retiring from the race.
Yeah, and that is, well, that is not what Franklin would have wanted at all. A race that looked so promising for them has turned around pretty rapidly.
Well, it certainly has, but I suppose that should be make a bit of worries be happening on the other side of the Franklin pit wall with Enrique Ruiz, and potentially for Ingram as well, with Jean Matson.
Klaas pits now.
Klaas van Snelheid in the pits, there you are, for his 3rd stop on the soft tyres.
So where is he going to feed back out then? I mean, he got into 3rd place in some clear air, but hadn't really been able to pull much of a gap with it. Ruiz pits as well, and Klaas van Snelheid, I think he's just going to rejoin in points here, and indeed he does. Klaas van Snelheid rejoins in 9th, but he has one more stop to go.
He does, as does this man right here, Elroy Wagner, on the medium tyres we are expecting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Sean Matson is running on the hard tyres, who's currently in 13th. And if he is on the hard tyres, I think he could be in for a reasonable haul of points for Ingram.
He is on the hard tyres, and behind Baron Halverson, he is indeed the next driver on the hard tyres.
Well, Bear and Halverson we were just speaking of, and here they are, completely inseparable all race. But it's Bear who's had the advantage, but Kanger has closed right up to the back of them.
Yeah, he has. Alar Kanger then, absolutely desperate to try and take a decent result out of this. He's had an up and down season.
Alar Kanger, I think you may be right about that if we bring up the standings at the minute.
Yeah, 3 podiums, a 7th, and 2 non-scores.
One of which was a retirement in China, which I Was he involved in a collision there?
I think
Seem to
yes,
remember it
yeah,
might
with
be.
Powers.
With Nathaniel
While they were
Powers. Well,
first and second, I believe, or not actually first and second, but net first and second.
Well, Alar Kangur, a very, very fast and talented driver we know, but this season yet to take a victory, and it doesn't look like it's going to be happening here, but there's still a decent amount of points on offer if you can convert the strategy to some degree.
Yeah, he'll be hoping that, as we've got some debris on the track there just before the hairpin, and both the Meteors are into the pits.
Wow,
I've just put two and two together and come up with a team collision.
I think you may be right, and that definitely looked like a rear wing sitting in the track. So that's going to be pretty dangerous if anyone collects it, as we've got.
Garcia down the inside of Jean Matson, and that is for 13th place, but potentially, we say 5th, and but he can't quite make it off. As there's a collision, that's Klaas van Snelheid, and one of the Ingrams, I think that's James Vasquez, and there's absolute chaos. That's Davenport's being caught up in it, and wow, what on earth went on there?
Wow, I am not entirely certain, but we've got some more side-by-side action. But there you are, James Vasquez without a front right wheel, and that is him out of the race for Ingram.
Yeah, and Klaas van Snelheid without a front wing, so, well, he had to make one more stop. He didn't expect it to be this soon, and there indeed is a Meteor in the pits without a rear wing. And, well, I mean, if Klaas even did have a very slim hope of points, that's gone now.
That's true. Klaas van Snelheid's afternoon goes from bad to sort of catastrophic, really. But oof, that was a pretty significant impact.
Yeah, on the replay then, Vasquez was all over the curb on the inside. Klaas didn't give him masses of room, but I think Vasquez just hit a bobble. Davenport stood on the brakes to try and avoid it, and then just got walloped as he spun round by, I think that was the first of Perez again, wasn't it?
I think it definitely looked like it, and well, Davenport, he backed in and he's lost his rear wing as well.
Here we've got, sorry, the replay of the two Meteors, and that was, oh dear, that's Lopez running straight into the back of Jules Simon. It looked as though he was going to go for the gap between Simon and Hutchinson, but that didn't work. The gap wasn't big enough, and instead he ran into the back of his teammate.
Well, threading a needle that just wasn't there, and that's put pain to any hope of Meteor getting a strong result out of this. Likewise, Klaas van Snelheid, who was caught up in that incident with, I've already forgotten who it was. It was Vasquez, that was it. And Carson Davenport, as you said, stamping on the brakes to try and avoid a collision, and just completely locked up, lost control of the car. And both Chimas, off what looked to be a pretty strong result earlier on in the race, now two non-finishes, unfortunately.
Well, no, let's not forget, it has been brought in that rear wings can now be replaced in the pit lane, which is why you see Jules Simon has rejoined but 2 laps down. Unfortunately, the rear wing assembly just takes rather a long time, so any hope of a reasonable result for Davenport is long out the window.
Well, that's absolutely true, so it would seem. So thank you very much for correcting me on that. And Jules Simon, interestingly, still hasn't gone past Vasquez, so that just shows you how much time they lose changing that rear wing.
There we go, up to 22nd, but yeah, Klaas van Snelheid then drops to 19th, and I have to say, I didn't expect at 45 laps into this race, the two drivers on the front row to be running 16th and 19th.
Well, they are still running, so that remarkable statistic we have of the pole sitter either retiring or going on to win, potentially could be broken this race.
Yes, that's a very good point. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. There's Puccio Giordano then, running in 7th, but he is on the medium tyres, isn't he? And, well, I don't think that's going to help him somewhat. Because he has a lot of cars, not particularly far behind him, that are on the hards.
Well, that's true. Matson and Garcia, 2 of them. I'm not entirely sure what Wagner and Zylander are running.
Wagner and Zylander are on the mediums, Matson and Garcia are on the hards, Alvarez is on the hards, De La Fuente is on the hards, Osberg is on the hards.
Okay, so that's going to be quite interesting when they come in and make their stops, because they will presumably
Ruiz around the outside of Osberg.
Wow, so just as we were talking about Osberg on the hard tyres, he gets jumped by Ruiz at turn 1.
Oh, as this is interesting then, Nathaniel Powers into the pits, but Adrian Simon carries on. So, wow, Powers in a slightly earlier stop, and what's this, the end of lap 45?
45. So when did he make his pit stop? It was 23, wasn't it?
Yeah, I want to say it was. If that's only 22 laps, that's going to be really tight for a 3-stopper.
It's going to be very, very close. So if he can, he's going to have to eke these tyres out something pretty impressive.
Otherwise, he's just handed this to Adrian Simon,
who we see going round. That is Ryan and Klaas van Snelheid. He's just lapping at the moment, and Adrian Simon, in going one lap further, perhaps he's put himself in a better position to take the victory. The DS Madishaw pit wall. Perhaps they've played it well here.
Yeah, they absolutely could have done. There's Klaas van Snelheid's in 18th and just been overtaken by Hunter Ryan. Oh dear.
He was behind Hunter Ryan already.
Oh, I just saw him flick behind him on the timing screen. I thought he was attempting an overtake that didn't pull off, but yeah, well, it's yeah, that's not a great day, is it? Power's taken a lot of time out of Simon on this lap, with gap reduced by about 1.5 seconds, but Adrian Simon now dives into the pits then. Will his 1 lap longer have helped him out at all? I think Powers is gonna take back the lead here, but well, we'll have to see come the end of the race. That's gonna be really quite tight, I think.
It certainly is. By what margin is Powers going to come out ahead if he does? And we think he will do.
He's made excellent use of that additional lap. 2.5 seconds clear of Adrian Simon. The pair of them were nose to tail.
Well, they were. So that's mightily impressive stuff from Nathaniel Powers on that fresh rubber. But now he's going to have to eke that out so he doesn't have to stop again. Because if he does, then Simon is there ready to pounce.
He certainly is. And if we assume that these two don't have to pit again, let's hope, they're already half a minute clear of Bayer. This is going to be some kind of dominant margin up front.
It certainly is very, very dominant, as we've seen. That it just seems to be, it's so tricky to overtake here that if you get caught up behind slower cars, as the Franklins, Kanger and Van Snelheid all have, then that drops you well down the order as Bergqvist and Giordano and Zylander are all into the pits, and Elroy Wagner stays out for one more lap. Is that going to cost him?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see then. I'm not entirely sure what these guys are really scrapping for. If we've got what? Bayer we think is going to be 3rd, Halverson 4th, Matson you'd assume moves up into 5th, or Kanger's there. Kanger's got a bit of a gap back to Matson now. I wonder if Kanger is just going to be able to eke this out enough to be able to hold on. That'll be interesting to see. So let's provisionally place Kanger in 5th, Matson 6th, Garcia 7th, Alvarez 8th, De La Fuente 9th, Osberg 10th.
That would be quite a remarkable result, the points being positioned spread around teams that potentially don't get very much. But it just definitely seems to be that the tyres and the strategies in this race have completely thrown up something massively unexpected, if it does end up the way we're expecting it to end up, with some 20 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely, but this happened, I think it was 2 years ago, as Alar Kanger pits from 5th then. We'll keep an eye on this. I'll go back to my little stat in a moment, because this is going to be crucial to where we think Alar Kanger may finish this race. He's already out of his pit box and in the pit lane exit. If he can come out ahead of Matson, he's surely on for saving his race. As that's a DS Matthershaw round. It's Adrian Simon at the side of the road with an engine exploded.
Oh, no, that's a disaster for him then, because it looked as though, because he'd saved that extra lap on his pit stop, and that is a Meteor alongside him, static.
Oh, it
so
is.
Has there been a collision?
I think there are 2 wheels there further back, and Kanger's just hit the debris. Kanger did come out in 5th place ahead of Matson. What's going on here then? Adrian Simon as he laps one of the Meteors, and that is an absolute disaster. Was that his brother?
I think it was Mario Juan Lopez, but what a sensational story that would have been. But it's a sensational story anyway. Adrian Simon,
Lopez.
We thought Adrian Simon was in a very strong position for winning this race, but now that has gone out the window. That's elevated Bayer up to 2nd and Halverson up to 3rd.
That then is an absolute disaster, as you say, for Adrian Simon, who, quite rightly, we thought was in with a great shout of winning this. What it now does is puts Nathaniel Powers into a near 40-second lead.
Well, all he has to do here is stay out of trouble and bring it home, but we've seen for a great many drivers, including at the front, that hasn't been easy this race. And
even drivers all on their own seem to be struggling to stay out of trouble.
It really does. Potentially that's just the heat getting to them. But Alar Kangur sitting in 4th, some 8 seconds back from Halvorsen, the last of the podium positions, and the Estonian could still get a podium out of this.
He certainly could, but he's going to have to put an overtake in. As yeah, there we go. The drivers have right. All the medium runners, I think, have pitted now. So the only drivers left to make another stop, potentially Powers on his mediums up front. We're not quite sure whether he'd stopped just 1 or 2 laps too early, but in theory, the only drivers left to make another stop should be those on the softs, which is Ruiz in 8th, which is absolutely going to cost him a points finish, and Klaas van Snelheid down in 17th, who's already cost himself a points finish.
That it has, so that will put De La Fuente into 8th, Ursberg into 9th, Bergqvist into 10th for Holmqvist, and Powers, well, you've got to imagine he will be a bit pleased that Simon's no longer there, because he can absolutely afford to take another pit stop, play it safe, and still come out in the lead of the race.
At this point, he could afford 2 pit stops and still have time in hand.
Well, that just shows you how remarkable the pace in that Downton and in Nathaniel Powers has been here
I think it's
today.
been somewhat exemplified by the fact that it has been primarily Bayer who's been behind him in Holmqvist, and there is rather a large pace difference.
Well, it certainly does, but again, that perhaps just goes to show you that it's because it's so difficult to overtake here, and definitely seem to be favoured with perhaps the track surface and the temperatures. If you can get into a good position and not get caught up in a train, you will potentially get a very good result out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just having a look. It was 2017 then, when Arden Hutchinson and Will Hoskins gambled on the hard tyres here in Spain and finished 3rd and 4th respectively for 1st in AMR.
Wow, so that was a big result for them, and as it could well be for Holmqvist and Northstar if Bayer and Halvorsen can hang on to this, but Kangur is closing in on them rapidly. He's already dropped the gap down to 4.5 seconds.
Yeah, so Kangur then, the Estonian, absolutely desperate for a podium here now that he's sensed it. But yeah, interestingly, looking at the results from last year, the hard tyres didn't work as well. Will Hoskins was the highest finisher, and he was 9th, having started 7th.
Wow, so potentially the race a little bit cooler back then last year than it was as we're seeing it now. But it definitely seems to be favouring the hard tyres here. Jerez could really throw up some spectacular races when it wants to.
Well, spectacular results. I wouldn't say the race has been anything to rave about.
That's true. That's exactly the right way of putting it.
But yeah, this is somewhat phenomenal. What I find interesting is that, I mean, I suppose it's that split, isn't it? You've got the top teams who are looking at, you know, on a regular basis competing for wins and really strong results. None of them, I want to say gambled. I don't know if it was much of a gamble looking at the temperatures, but none of them gambled on the hard tyres like some of the midfield teams have done. And look at how handsomely it looks to be paying off.
Well, it really does, but then perhaps they just assumed that they would be so far ahead that they wouldn't necessarily have to.
Well, yeah.
But then you saw the soft-tyred runners couldn't really drop the medium-tyred runners earlier in the running, and then the medium-tyred runners couldn't drop the hards.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
So even so, it's yeah. Imagine if imagine if one of the top guys had gambled on the hard tyres. They'd be well away.
They certainly would. I'm not entirely sure if they would be as far up the road as Powers, because he's had effectively clear air. Powers has had effectively clear air for the vast majority of the race, with Simon just behind him, and, well, able to put the hammer down and stretch the legs of that Downton. And look at that, 45 seconds ahead of Bayer and Halvorsen, and with Kangur, who is now less than a second and a half off the back of Halvorsen, so potentially the Estonian not yet out of this.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued as to what the largest ever winning margin in a race is.
Wow, it could certainly be broken today by this man, Nathaniel Powers. As, wow, 45 seconds. He's already starting lap 51. The rest of them aren't even around turn 6.
Right, as I have it, the largest winning margin is 45.740 seconds, set in the 2015 British V-Prix when Olin Inman won ahead of his teammate Adrian Simon.
Well, I think barring any catastrophes, it is
Or a
set to
pit
be
stop.
broken here today. Or a pit stop, that's absolutely right, because Powers, we think, may have to pit again. But even so, this is probably going to be one of the most dominant performances we've seen so far.
Yeah, well and truly. And, I mean, I think, yeah, well, we reckon we've got Ruiz to pit again, and possibly Powers. We're not too sure on that one. But Bayer and Howison, okay, they've got to defend for another 16 laps from Al Arkanga, but I mean, they've managed to defend pretty much the entire race from a variety of drivers, so I'm not entirely sure that's going to be particularly difficult. This is going to be some weird podium.
It definitely is, but well, keep in mind, it is tricky to overtake around here, but as we've seen, not impossible. So you just have to keep your eyes about yourself.
Yeah, and Kanga is in a quicker car on quicker tyres.
And we know he can be quite aggressive, so Halverson, he just needs to position his car in the right way, which he has been doing over, I think it was Klaas van Snelheid he was keeping behind for quite a while.
Yeah, I think so, and I'll be honest, I pray for you they don't come together.
Oh, that would be disastrous, but then we've got Garcia down in 6th there, so he could pick up a pretty good result as well. As, well, speaking of, here he is just ahead of Alvarez and Ruiz, who are having a bit of a scrap among themselves. But no one seemed to be making any moves as of the time being.
No, not quite, as we cut back to the battle for 2nd place then, led by Felix Bayer.
Wow, well...
I just don't know what to say.
I have absolutely no idea. There's 15 laps to go. It's just a case of can they hold off that charging DS Mathershaw with Kanga at the wheel.
And fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong with the car. As there we go, Ruiz into the pits then at the end of lap 53. And, well, that's absolutely going to cost him any chance of points.
That's true, it's going to put him well down the order and gives Alvarez a little bit of reprieve there from having a former world champion right behind him. And now that elevates, as we said, De La Fuente, Ursberg and Bergqvist up into the points. And where's he going to feed out in relation to Klaas van Snelheid, interestingly? Because they were side by side.
Yeah, well, he's ahead, but Klaas is slightly out of kilter now, isn't he? Because he had a broken front wing. Klaas van Snelheid, meanwhile, about to be lapped by his teammate. Ouch.
Wow, that must be relatively galling. It just goes to show you've not had the best of races.
I mean, I suppose
by your
if
teammate,
we look at a slightly wider picture, we've got Ruiz leading Klaas and Powers, which is, I suppose, if you looked at the start of the race, kind of how maybe this might have panned out.
Well, potentially, but then you've got to keep it on the track and keep everything together. And well, it just seems like the soft tyres not the way to go, and then throw in the incidents they've been involved in, and it's just all.
I was just to say, I wonder if the tyres that they've been on, the soft tyres, have contributed somewhat to the incident. So maybe they've been so hot, they've overheated, and they've just had a lack of grip.
I think you may be right about that. That's certainly one theory as to why they may have had a bit of a lack of control here and there. But here we are on board with Al Arkanga at the moment, still unable to find a way past Halverson, and it's been a couple of laps now or so, but there's still 14 to go.
Yeah, well, Howison spent most of the early part of this race defending from Ruiz and Klaas van Snelheid, didn't he? And he managed to hold that one off, so it will certainly be interesting to see. I mean, it's kind of hilarious and kind of absolutely heartbreaking at the same time. If we discount Davenport and Jules Simon, because obviously they've had rear wing changes, Hutchinson and Hunter Ryan, who have kind of been slightly nowhere this whole race, Ruiz and Klaas van Snelheid, the drivers who started on the front row, are running last.
They are. The soft tyres just have not worked this afternoon, and they are right the way down the order, 15th and 16th. There's very little chance of points short of a meteor strike, effectively. But
we've already had that. They ran into one another.
That's true. Yeah, that was the second that came out of my mouth. But well, this is this Will Hoskins we're watching right now? It has to be, because Perez is retired.
Yeah.
In 14th place at the back of this train, behind De La Fuente in 8th.
A first, a Franklin and a Downton in 14th, 15th and 16th. Not something I expected to see this season. Oh, as Enrique Ruiz pops in the fastest lap. That'll please him.
Wow, well, it's Well, being on the soft tyres, perhaps he's just been able to save a little bit of life in them, and then really take a punch at getting the fastest lap, and it's come to him. It's Klaas van Snelheid in the pits.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's something for Ruiz. It'll go towards his records, if nothing else.
Potentially will do, as Van Snelheid exits the pits in 18th.
Oh God! He's last. He's running last.
We've got Davenport and Simon behind it, but they have had rear wing changes. But there's 12 or 13 laps to go. Do we actually think he's going to make it to the end?
Who?
Van Snelheid will not have to stop again.
Yeah, I reckon he should. He should just about. In which case, actually, Ruiz might not. Klaas might go past. Klaas has passed Ryan. Klaas has passed Hunter Ryan. He's not last.
Hooray! But going back to
and Hutchinson, crikey!
Wow, so that's impressive stuff from him there. I thought I just saw the timing screens flickering around a little bit, but well, as you said, Ruiz. If the tyres are really lasting 12 laps or so, if Ruiz has to pit again, that'll be quite something.
Won't it just? What this could mean now, though, is that Klaas van Snelheid is in a bit of free air. I wonder if he'll attempt to... I mean, he's got literally nothing else to fight for. He could entirely just throw the car at the wall at this point. I wonder if he's going to try and take that fastest lap back from Enrique Ruiz.
I think that's it's potentially that he could do. But
it's a shame you don't get a point for it in this series.
There's no points on offer for fastest lap in Formula Virtual, unfortunately. But there's still pride on the line, and Klaas van Snelheid, I think his pride's definitely going to be taking a hammering this weekend. I think he will definitely want to salvage something from it.
It's not just his pride, his championship lead is, well, it's not just taking a hammering. It will have evaporated if it finishes like this and gone more substantially in the other direction.
That's absolutely true. Nathaniel Powers was taking a big haul of 25 points. Ruiz, Van Snelheid and Simon, 3 other championship protagonists, all, from the looks of it, failing to score.
Yeah, and Kanga only 12 points as well in 4th. Powers is literally taking points from every single one of them.
That is going to stretch the gap to something quite remarkable, I think, heading out of Spain and into whatever the next round is. I forget, unfortunately.
Ooh, that's a really good call. I should remember, because we're going to have to do the results in not too long.
In a little while. There's about 10 or 11 laps left to go. As still keeping an eye on this train behind De La Fuente. We've got Ersberg, Bayer, Giordano, Zylander, Wagner and Hoskins. And Enrique Ruiz just closing up to the back of them. So from 8th down to 15th. All in the same stretch of track. And, well, potentially one wrong move could drop any one of them right to the back of it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely could.
They're all just taking it cautiously and trying to bring it home.
Yeah, most definitely. Oh, and indeed, there is a wrong move, and it's Elroy Wagner. He's looped it round and reversed it into the wall. And, that was another retirement.
That's definitely him out of the race, you're right, as Klaas van Snelheid goes by him. But
perhaps he just had enough.
Perhaps he has. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But, well, maybe it was desperation trying to get an overtake done. But that's not the way you want to end the race.
No.
As
I don't know, I bet Klaas and Ruiz kind of feel like ending their race like that at the moment.
Oh, well, maybe. But, well, if the cars up ahead continue to make retirements happen, then
that's a fair shout.
Get bumped up. Yeah, steadily getting bumped up. So Hoskins now finds himself 13th. Ruiz 14th, Van Snelheid 15th. I was going to say we're running on board with him, but no, this is Powers out on the front, all on his lonesome. 54 seconds ahead of Bayer.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah, I think we'll get some overtakes at the next round. We're at Canada next.
Oh, Canada. That normally throws up some pretty good overtaking.
And can also throw up the odd unusual result. I seem to remember a North Star win a few years ago.
2017 it was. It certainly threw up some spectacular results, and well, I don't think we've been anywhere near that since. But I'll gladly have one.
You're third. You're not far off.
Well, that's true, but I mean, well, if we let Kangur through and then he collects Bayer, I'm not entirely sure that's something quite astonishing to be banking on. But there's 9 laps to go, and well, for however long it's been so far, Halverson has been able to keep Kangur behind him. And, well, the finish line is nearly in sight, so potentially could still hang on to a podium position, can Halverson.
Yeah, as you say, he's defended this long, so I don't see any reason why he can't hold on for another 9 laps. He's positioning his car in all of the right places, but yeah, the gap up front is 55 seconds. That's verging on ridiculous, isn't it?
It is, that's absolutely the word I was going to use, but, well, you know, Nathaniel Powers, Simon ran him close until the incident, but Powers, aside from Simon, has been in a class of 1 all race long, and if he does take the victory, it will be richly deserved.
Yeah, absolutely will. Just, what's it? That's nearly a second a lap.
It certainly is over the hard tyre runners behind him, and Powers on the mediums. In the Downton's definitely faster, and the medium tyres are faster than the hards, but 55 seconds, even I don't think that's just down to car and tyres.
No, absolutely not, as we've got a couple of cars side by side in the hairpin, but nothing doing there, I don't think, as, just no, I don't think Klaasman Snelheid has gone for fastest lap, because nothing's popped up.
Well, potentially, maybe he's just trying to not exactly bring it home, but we've got Ruiz here. He's got Powers, well, Klaas van Snelheid, I should say, has Powers ahead of him. And Powers is now going to be behind Ruiz a little bit. So this train of lap traffic, he's got to get through it in fairly short order, and might we see some moves for position as Powers is making his way through, I wonder?
What I do hope is that Powers doesn't end up with any back markers getting in his way as he comes through. We've already seen Adrian Simon come a cropper.
That we have, but
and in fact there he is, so he is really close to this train then, and just a note, I should imagine Klaas is probably not pushing so as not to put any pressure on Powers. Powers, I'd imagine, would be more than happy to trickle home for the last... Trickle? Trickle is the word I was after, for the last 7 laps, and not get involved in this little scrap.
I think you're absolutely right. He just wants to bring it home now. He's got such a huge margin.
Maybe he'll pit purposely to not have to lap any of them.
Well, maybe, but that would be quite early for it, I think, judging from when he stopped last. But yeah, Powers closing in on this train, and well, even if they do hold him up, I don't think it's going to trouble him at all.
Yeah, I'm not sure Felix Bear quite has the capacity, skill, or car underneath him to close 57 seconds in 7 laps. I think Powers would need to get out and have a cup of tea, or several.
That would be quite remarkable. Just get out, stick the kettle on for the Downton team, and then crack on again, and he can still pick up the victory. Wow, he's pulled out almost a minute on the entire field.
I was going to say, is this going to go over a minute? I reckon it will by the end of the race.
It might well do. He's got 7 laps to pull out, I think it's around 2.5 seconds or so. Admittedly, the back markers are there, but I think he could do it.
That's yeah, certainly going to be interesting to keep an eye on. I do wonder if he will dive into the pits though to avoid having... You think the next guy who's got a lap is Ruiz? He's not going to make it easy, is he?
He's very not going to make it easy, considering that he's one of the championship protagonists as well.
Blue flags or not, Ruiz might make it easy because that is smoke coming from the back of the Honda engine.
Well, we've already seen Kinnaman retiring with engine failure, and Ruiz just 6 laps from the end, shades of 2015, but it doesn't look like he's going to make it.
No, it absolutely doesn't. And, wow, what is going on with the Honda engine? Ruiz retired from the last race in France with an engine failure. Kinnaman's gone here as well. This is 3 engine failures in 4 starts for Franklin, and that is, well, they're going to be seriously looking at Honda for answers.
I think they certainly will do, and you've got to imagine the Ingram pit wall will be pretty nervous as well, with Matson currently running 5th, on for some very, very good points. And they've got to imagine he's hoping his engine can hold together as well. Yeah,
absolutely. As Powers, meanwhile, has got onto the back of this little train and is currently encountering a face full of smoke from the expiring Honda unit in the back of the Franklin. And, well, Ruiz just clearly has no power there, and that made it far easier for Powers than I think it would have been.
It certainly did. I wonder if that, in fact, it's not. He's still going. But, well, you know, blue flags may have done something, but perhaps the Honda engine slightly giving up has given it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. As Powers then is going to have to start threading his way through this traffic. It's Will Hoskins first up. He's probably lapped Will Hoskins a few times this season, but not in that first. And round the outside, and that's very close, but Powers then just making it through. And, I mean, I shouldn't be this nervous with a 59-second lead, but...
Well, I know, you can, I think, afford to have a little bit of contact and get turned around, but not much more than that. As he gets past Will Hoskins, and now Thierry Zylander is the next one up the road. As you're just wondering how long that Franklin engine can hold out. I definitely don't think it's going to last for 5 more laps.
I'm slightly concerned that Klaas van Snelheid is rather close behind him. The point that it expires, Klaas might just run into the back of him.
That would not be the best of...
I mean, it would sum up their race, really, wouldn't it, the pair of them?
I suppose it would do. The soft tyres, they haven't given them any help whatsoever.
Oh, Powers is round! Powers is round, trying to lap Thierry Zylander. And the race leader then, thankfully had nearly a minute in hand. But I was worried something like this would happen. And he's indeed thrown it into the gravel. That does, however, give him a little bit of breathing room. 4 laps to go. He now has the gap to close back up again.
Well, he certainly does,
Nathaniel.
But thank goodness Simon's back there. Thank goodness Simon wasn't back there. But a 52-second gap, he can definitely afford the odd misstep there. But he's got Klaas van Snelheid and Jerez to get back in front of as well.
That's Giordano slowing. Giordano then is pulled over and is out of the race.
Wow, that's quite sudden, but I don't think I can see anything necessarily wrong with the car.
No, there seemed to be a bit of black smoke, but I'm not entirely sure what was going on there. As Klaas van Snelheid goes up the inside of Ruiz, whose engine finally expires then on the exit of the hairpin. Powers slows. I don't know if he was waving to him there as he went by or not. But yeah, and that Ruiz then joins the list of retirements. And from pole position, I mean, 4 laps from the end, I don't think there's a word in the English language that can describe how bad Ruiz's race has gone.
Well, that's absolutely true. It's been very, very unfortunate on a number of occasions this afternoon. But ending in ignominy, I suppose, as Ruiz and Giordano retire within seconds of one another. So that's a lot of retirements this afternoon, and well, potentially a pretty strong result for some pretty surprise names. We've got Bear and Halverson still in 2nd and 3rd, ahead of Kangur, who's got now 5 laps to try and make a move.
Yeah, so let's have a look at this. What have we got? We've got Nathaniel Powers up front, who tried to throw it away. He nearly did a Giordano, although he had a bit more of a lead, so it wasn't quite as nervy. And it wasn't quite the last lap. But yeah, Powers up in front, looking on course. I mean, touch wood, for his 3rd win in 3 races. Bayer in 2nd place, looking on course for his 1st ever podium. Halverson in 3rd, looking for his 1st podium for North Star. I mean, we've got a lot of firsts here going on. Kangar's 4th and picking up some reasonable points when, let's be fair, all bar one of his championship rivals have fallen off the road, so that seems a pretty reasonable return. Matson in 5th, Garcia 6th, Alvarez 7th, De La Fuente in 8th place. Those would be his first career points, and at home as well. That's not a bad result.
It's very not a bad result, considering that Andromeda are currently sitting on 1 point at the minute.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I'm not entirely sure if this would elevate them out of Q1. I'll just check.
It wouldn't, not quite, because I think Ingram scored 8 and they were currently 10th, and they're going to get another 10 points here.
That's true. Ingram currently have 6, but definitely adding to their point total Andromeda here, that would be quite something.
It certainly would. As Bayer just gaps Helveson ever so slightly there and leaves him prey to Alar Kanga, but I don't think that lasts long, and they'll rapidly close back up onto the rear end of the Holmfest. As there we see Nathaniel Powers then, all on his lonesome, and I think he's just backed off a little now. He doesn't want to get involved in that train again, does he?
He really doesn't. He just wants to bring it home, and you can see that they're off in the distance, are Klaas van Snelheid and Hoskins at the back of it. But it's been such an incredible performance here from Powers this afternoon.
It certainly has, and well, this is lap 67, so the record in terms of the largest winning margin in a Formula Virtual race will probably be decided this time round, because I shouldn't imagine he'll pit on lap 68, so it's this or nothing for him, isn't it?
Well, so it would seem, as speaking of pit stoppers, we've got Simon and Davenport into the pits again. But they'll be out of sync after their rear wings need changed.
Of course.
So keep an eye on Powers on the timing screen on the left. When he comes round this final sequence of corners here, we're going on
class launches up the inside of Will Hoskins, but nope, nothing doing there. Powers is a little bit further behind them, so let's see then. Will he does dive into the pits.
Oh, he does, so that's going to drop the margin a little bit, but he's got such an incredible lead, it's not going to make much of a difference, so he's just playing it safe, making sure he can get to the end of the race.
Yeah, all this is going to do is, I would say throw the record out the window, but actually he's going to come out not too far, 39 seconds. That's the 6 seconds to make up is quite a lot in 2 laps, isn't it?
Well, that's true, unless something happens with the cars behind him. But here they are. We've got Bayer, Halverson and Kangur in that same order, as they have been for some dozen or so laps now. And Kangur is running out of time.
He certainly is. Hoskins seems to be battling with Zylander. We're not watching it on screen. It's the two of them just switching places quite a few times on the timing screen.
Well, that's true. Scrapping over 11th, which could potentially come 10th if anything happens up ahead.
That's
it's
very
not
true.
over until the checkered flag falls.
No, it is not. And in fact, we saw that. When was it? Was it 2016? When Timo Kinnaman, I think it was, everyone behind him had been lapped. He was running in 8th place and his engine failed on the final lap. But because those behind him had been lapped, he still picked up the points.
That he did. He still picked up the points for 8th place, despite retiring on the final tour.
Yeah.
But I doubt anything like that's going to happen here this afternoon, because the train from it's De La Fuente back is Klaas van Snelheid 13th, currently the last guy on the lead lap. So I'm not entirely sure that's going to happen. But
no,
keep an eye on
Kanga's up the inside of Halverson. So Alar Kanga then, he's realised he's only got 2 laps left. He's absolutely desperate for it, but that one doesn't pay off, and that's given Halverson, Bayer up in second, a little bit of breathing room, and Halverson has created a bit of a gap back to himself as well to Kanga, and that's Jules Simon trying to unlap himself from Alar Kanga. That would have been absolutely perfect for Johan Halverson, but Simon couldn't quite make it.
Well, that's true. To put a car between himself and Kanga when there's the final podium position on offer, that would have been just the cushion that Halverson perhaps needed, but he's held Kanga off so far, and now there's only 1 tour left to go. 13 corners, or however many it is.
Yeah,
can he make it there?
Powers has already got the gap up to 43 seconds. I think he's going for this record, you know.
Well, he could well be. Perhaps the Downton pit will have told him about it. But, well, let's hope he can make it then. But he's going to be quite a way around the final lap here. But this is what we're watching, the battle for the last podium position.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's led by Felix Bayer then in second position. But, well, I mean, this is your race leader. And he has been, since Ruiz and Klaas van Snelheid pitted early on, Nathaniel Powers has been, as you said earlier, a class of 1. He had Adrian Simon for company early on, but Simon was involved in a collision with a back marker, and that left Powers on his own. 45 seconds clear of the field. Nathaniel Powers wins his 3rd race in a row and wins for the 2nd time here in Spain. And, well, he is absolutely untroubled, and we now have to wait over half a lap for anyone else to finish.
Well, we've got Alar Kanga still sniffing around the back of Halverson for that 3rd place and the last podium position, but at the moment he can't make any movement.
Look at that. I think that goes to show how slow Bayer is on those hard tyres at the moment, that Jules Simon and Carson Davenport have closed up to the back of this little trio. But Bayer's going to hold on, and this is quite remarkable. 94 races before this. This is his 95th attempt, and finally Felix Bayer takes a podium. 2nd place for the Dutchman Holmqvist, and at equal jubilation behind for Johan Halverson and the North Star team in 3rd place. Kanga can only finish 4th, but I think he'll take that from the crazy result that we've seen here today. Matson 5th and some fantastic points for Ingram, ahead of Garcia, who adds further points for North Star. Alvarez in 7th, and De La Fuente, he'll be absolutely jubilant. His 1st career points, 4 of them for 8th place, in front of his home crowd. Osberg and Bergqvist complete the point scorers as we join Nathaniel Powers on his way back into the pits. And, well, that was some kind of crazy race and a crazy result. And it's Powers who wins here in Spain. So the official classification then shows Nathaniel Powers as the winner. Didn't quite manage to take the record with a 43.8 second winning margin over Felix Bayer. Takes his 1st podium in 2nd. Johan Halverson rounds out a really surprising podium, and I mean just a surprise result, all down throughout the points behind him. Enrique Ruiz took the fastest lap and was classified, but didn't finish the race. Don't think he'd have scored points anyway, but that has huge ramifications in the Drivers' Championship, that race. Nathaniel Powers now goes to the top with a 17-point advantage over teammate Klaas van Snelheid. Johan Halverson, Felix Baer and Sergio Alvarez also gain places further down the table. Jean Matson is the biggest jumper, Rodolfo De La Fuente gaining 7 spots, but up the top all that does is put the 2 Downton drivers further ahead, as the only other one of the sort of de facto top 6 to score was Alar Kanga. In the Constructors' Championship, that means the Downton extend their lead. It's now 57 points over DS Matshaw and 93 back to Franklin. Ingram gained 3 spots from 10th up to 7th, while Lopez dropped 2 to 9th. But that's all from our race here today in Jerez. So from both me and Nick, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time for round 8 from Montreal, Canada.